Hi there, Peter Nelson here with another version or another class at Hobie University. Up at the beautiful and iconic Lake Quinault on the Olympic Peninsula and for the Pacific Northwest Area Championships. And on Sunday morning, we're going to put a little land clinic together, and I'm going to show you how to rig a Hobie 16, some of the things I've done to my 16. We're also going to talk about some of the things that we did yesterday during the 6 races that we ran, and I think that will also have value. My recommendation, though, is there's about 40 years worth of experience condensed into this. I recommend that you come back to this video regularly, because you're not going to get it all in one try. So you take a few things away from it, incorporate them, come back, incorporate them, and hopefully you can condense those 40 years down to just a few seasons. Good luck. And there's a pop quiz after. I've already done a short introduction up there of what we're doing here, but just for your benefit, I'm going to go through the boat from the bow to the stern, just talking about stuff and the way that we rigged the boat. And then I'm going to switch to what we did yesterday, because there were some midday adjustments that we were doing. And then also we'll just take questions. And so if you have questions, feel free to open them up as we go. So let's go to the bow here, and we'll start at the front end of it. We have tensioned our jib halyard already, and you can see how much tension we have if you swing, what the diameter of that is maybe 2 inches. We have it reefed on as hard as we can. And the reason is severalfold. One is it's a lake, and that's flatter water. If it gets really, really puffy, where the hull is rising up all the time, and you're working your ass off just trying to keep the boat flat, then I will loosen the jib halyard, because that ends up being a shock absorber, and it's actually faster if you're not just constantly doing this. But otherwise, my attitude is that a tight rig transfers the wind energy hitting the sails into the boat, into the hulls, and through the water. And that a soft rig will absorb a lot of that energy and is hence slower. So when I can, I go with a tight rig as often as possible. We have we have a Telecat here. That's helpful, particularly for the crew. I don't use it so much for driving anymore. I do use it, actually. I kind of see how I'm steering relative to these arms. These are mandatory for downwind sailing. If you want to sail fast downwind, then you'll want these. This is mohair yarn, so it doesn't get affected by rain. I bought a bunch of it, and I've got a boatload of it if you want. But you can also use cassette tape. The problem is that with cassette tape, if it starts raining or if it gets wet, the cassette tape will stick with this a lot of the time. So the mohair yarn works real good. I like it long, and I like it nice and long, and I like it so that I can see how it is in relation to this point of the Telecat. Let me see here. We'll get into that. And so then I have a bungee here, because this thing, it just slops in front of the sail, and it disrupts airflow. All right. I need to preface all of this, you guys. What I'm doing here is I'm condensing 40 years of sailing these Hobie 16s into 1 hour. And you're not going to get it all. And so we're making a video, and you can, on Hobie University, we have a YouTube channel, and I recommend that you go back to that, pick up a couple of things, implement it, come back, pick up a couple more, and keep coming back to it. And you can condense 40 years down into, a few seasons. Also, not everything I say is the absolute truth. By that I mean it's the way that I'm doing it and the way I rig it. But there are personal preferences. And if you think you have a better solution, you might and you should try it and go for it. So I'm going to tie this off. I tension the bungee. And I'm not going to fully tie it right now. I put a couple of half inches in there. And now it's out of the way of the jib. And it's not creating any airflow. You might look at where does the jib tack go into the this adjusting plate, and we're all the way up high, and you go, oh my gosh, Peter's on hole number whatever, and it turns so you run back to your boat and you put it on hole number 7. It turns out just this week we were measuring bridle, the length of these bridle wires, and they're all different. All right. I mean, there was no consistency whatsoever. There was somewhere closer than others. Mine are particularly short. So as a result, I have to go up higher. And this is a critical part of the rigging of the 16. But before I get to that, we're going to go back. And I want to show you how we rig our jib kloof. We use 2 holes. I personally have always found I use the bottom 2 holes. A key to the Hobie 16 is not to close off the slot. And by keeping it as low as possible, it tends to open up the slot. But I've also just found that my tailtails, I have 2 sets of tailtails on my jib. And they both, when I'm pointing up, I watch them, and they both go at about the same time. If one was going up earlier and the other wasn't, then I might adjust this until I got it right. And I'm not going to explain all that right now. But because I use these bottom 2 holes, and because both of my tailtails, weather tailtails, fluctuate at pretty much the same time, that's where I set it. But the key to all of this, you guys, is what we call stack height. And it's on the main and it's on the jib. And what happens, this is violation number 1. This happens all the time. People set up their rigs and they pull on as tight as they can and they're block to block. My attitude is if you're block to block, you don't know if you can put on more sheet, right? The only way you can know is if you're not block to block and you reef on that sucker and you're not block to block. So, I've got a little more here than I need. So yeah, I might loosen my jib halyard a little bit. Is one option, but what does that do? This is the class audience participation part of this.
The rig and puts your center of gravity forward.
But slackening the jib off is going to soften my rig. It's going to not tension it as much, right?
Yeah.
And I want a tight rig. So rather than slackening my jib off, is there another way that I can lower the jib? On the forestay.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would need to do here is, I probably will after the clinic's over, is I will loosen the jib halyard, lower this down 1 hole, go back, reef on my jib sheet, and see if I don't need it far. I just don't want it block to block. Because the other thing, you guys, is I'm on shore here and I'm reefing with my arms. Well, what happens when my crew gets trapped out, and with her legs, legs are a lot stronger, and she can really reef on it. So in any case, I will try that. And I've been up here all week. I did this all morning, just going back and forth, loosening the jib halyard, lowering this, raising it up, loosening it, and you just go through a process between this tack line and the jib sheet.
So on the jib, you don't want to be able to put it block to block?
No.
Okay.
Because as soon as I go block to block, I don't know if I'm fully sheeted or not.
Okay.
And so often, if you're not fully sheeted, and you see all the boats going like this, and you're off going like that, it means that you need more halyard tension because you're not, you don't have your jib in as tight as you should. The other thing, and I want you to show this. So we have these stops here, and we have these. It's a new boat, you guys. And if you have an older boat, I understand you might have different things. We are not all the way in. I've got these stopper balls here, so that I'm about that far from being all the way in. I don't know why. Some guys that were a hell of a lot faster than me figured that was it. And I said, no, it's good enough for them. It's good enough for me. So I don't have an answer as to why, but we are not all the way in. We're, like I said, a couple of inches out from being all the way in on our travel. I put a couple little tape marks here just for reference. Hey, this is for really big wind. You start traveling out. When you start seeing your mainsail start doing this in the luff, then you're probably choking off your slot. There's too much wind trying to go through that. And so then you just need to start traveling out a little bit. And so I might say, yeah, travel down to the first rudder, inside the first rudder. I don't know, whatever, okay? But those are nice little marks. I have it down there, back of the main too. Riding line. Everybody needs a riding line. It's class legal. This is polypropylene. Highly recommended because it doesn't hold any. It's very light, and it doesn't hold any water when it gets wet. Because it's all about weight too. But because it's so slippery, I have to put figure 8 knots in there because not that I've ever flipped, but I've heard. But you get this stuff is slippery, and if you don't have knots on it, you're just sliding down. So I'll put a knot every 3 feet in my polypropylene, and that seems to work really well. We just installed this, and I shouldn't have. This is the power pack system. I'm going to move it over to the side of the mast. But having this cam cleat here, or on this side, on the side, really helps. It's right in the front. It's just in the way of everything. So I'm going to move it over to the side. So it's work in progress. It's a 6-to-1 downhaul. Okay. And if you have an older boat, first of all, getting a triple blocks, they're not that expensive. I think these small little Harkin triples. So that can be a modification that isn't all that expensive. But if you have an older boat, you have a cleat here. So a lot of times you can go through the eye of the cleat, up around, and you can just kind of get a 4-to-1. It's not as slick as a 6-to-1 because Holly was my crew, Holly Deuterman. She was slackening it off upwind and downwind and stuff like that. So it gives you a little bit of selection that way to do that way. We have our traveler lines here. Okay, and these traveler lines allow us to adjust the traveler in and out. I've attached them. I attach them, and it depends on what your crew prefers. But I attach them to the trapeze line. That way, I think it's easier for them to get to. But maybe not. If it's there easier there, it doesn't really matter. They can reach over and grab it. So this next idea is a big one, so pay attention. It's called trampoline tension. You don't have to, it's all free, other than the fact that it messes up your hands if you don't have sailing gloves on. But you tension the heck out of this tramp, and it just solidifies the whole boat, and it just makes it solid. When that puff hits, all that energy goes into the hulls. None of it goes into, if you're hearing your boat creak, it's talking to you. It's saying, "Attention, my trampoline," is what it's saying. It's boat speak for attention, my trampoline. And so what we do there, and I'm jumping back, I'm going to come back here, but the attention to trampoline, you do the back first. You pull the trampoline back, and then you do the center next. And you'll expect a little bit of bow in on your side rails when you do a lot of it, but you want to be able to bounce a quarter off that thing just like your drill sergeant did. The next thing is mast rake. This is a primary adjustment for the Hobie 16. I talked about jib stack height, and that is also a primary adjustment. But I'm doing this bow to stern, but technically this would be your first adjustment. Then you would go to your jib, all right? And you'll say, "Oh, well, Peter, you're on hole 3 or hole 4. Yeah, well, the shrouds sometimes, they're actually much better with the shrouds than they are with the bridle wire length, but they still vary, okay? On the newer boats, most boats, because the manufacturing has gotten better, most boats are running on hole 3. If your minimum weight, I got to mention this. If you're between 285, which is minimum weight, to about 305, then you want to, and it's a newer boat, you want a lot of mast rate. What does a lot of mast rate do? A lot of mast rate helps you point closer to the wind, okay? But less mast, so mast rate brings the mast back. And if you've ever sailed a windsurf or whatever, those guys only reach. But if they ever do need to go upwind, they're bringing their mast back, okay? And so bringing the mast back helps you to point closer to the wind. Bringing the mast forward, it has advantages. It gives you more power. And if you've got, you get 320 to 350 is your crew weight, then you need that power. All right, you need to get going, and I think of it as a semi, an 18-wheeler. They got 16 gears or something, I think. A mast back means that you're in gears 12 through 16 all the time. But when you hit a hill, you're going to have a tough time with it. Meaning, when you get into choppy weather, choppy waves or whatever, those light crews, they're struggling. They're doing a lot of up and down sailing, whereas you're powering through it. Whereas if you're in the 320 to 350 range, on that 18-wheeler, you're probably in gears 8 through 12, maybe, in relative. You can be a little slower, but you can have more power, and you need that power to get the boat going, all right? And it's just a reality of life. And so you say, well, how do I know what my mast rate is? Oh, I'm glad you asked. Who asked that?
I did.
Okay, yeah. You're very smart, I can tell. But seriously, I forgot I was going to do this. You use your main halyard to help you figure out what your mast rake is. You'll have to excuse me. I got my boat so messed up in its rigging that it takes me a while to get this off. You won't have this problem. But one thing I do, by the way, hold on here. All right, I don't want to take time doing all this stuff. So, hopefully everybody's got a halyard with these little flakes in it, these little flecks. Those flecks are all 1 inch apart. So, if you don't have flecks, you can still use a tape measure. And what you do is to measure your mast rate, you go from the bottom of the lip in the bow all the way back to the transom in the bottom corner of the transom. So you can right about all the way down there. And then what I do is I lay it out here and I go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. And we were running 23 yesterday, which tells me that I've got more halyard tension. Let me explain this. All right. So let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a primary adjustment. If you're running minimum weight, 285 to 305, then you probably want to have a mast rate in the low 20s. Okay? If you're running between 305 and 320, you probably want a mast rate in the upper teens. And if you're between 320 and 350, you're probably in the lower teens. And above 350, I don't know if it much matters. So what happens is if the number is higher, it means I have more mast rate. There's a bigger difference between bow and stern. And a smaller number means it stood up. This gets really complicated. Some boats, especially the ones that are built in the 70s and maybe even to the 80s, they have a different mast step base, right? This part right here, that prevents you from getting up to a certain point. You cannot get into the low 20s with the mast, but you will have to replace that or get a new boat, a newer boat. So if you have a really older boat, you just get what you can and sail with it. I was talking to Griffin over here, and when I was getting started, I bought a old beater, 70s boat, and I was racing that and making all kinds of mistakes. And then at some point I'll go, I sailed that race. I did pretty good. We did pretty good as a crew on that race, and we still lost by a gop. Maybe it's time to get a newer boat. Then I went and I bought a 10 or 20-year-old boat, and then eventually you upgrade to a newer boat. So if you say, you go back to your boat and you say, gosh, I'm at 15 and we're kind of near. I need to drop down my shrouds. Then you're going to have to immediately start looking at your jib height. So shrouds go first. Everybody understand this? You get your mast rate where you want it, and then you adjust that your jib halyard and jib tack accordingly.
Hey, Peter?
Yeah.
Sorry. If you decide to tighten the shrouds one knot and you go back and adjust, what's it doing to you as far as the position of that jib when you get? Well,
that's a good question, Richard, because what happens is as you move this mast back, it is moving all of this closer in. That's why you have to start going up on your jib tack, because it's all moving it's moving the forestay closer to the front crossbar, and then your stack height starts to shrink on that. So that's that's what's going on with it. And I always think in terms of extremes. Well, gee, what if I really overdid it? And this thing would be, the forestay, instead of being here, it would be here or something, and I'd be really a lot shorter. The other thing is when you're stowing your jib, your main halyard, don't run it in front of the shrouds, tuck it behind the shrouds. Okay? Gets it out of the way. Another stack height issue is your main sheet. And so a lot of times I'll put downhaul on it, and if I'm going block to block, then is that good or bad?
Bad.
Yeah, thank you. You were paying attention. And so if my main blocks are block to block, well, that's no good either. Now I've got to, and usually it's probably going to be your mast rate. But keep in mind that more halyard tension will move the mast forward. It'll help that stack height, and it will help that stack height. But at some point, you got as much tension as you can get, and now you got to change things around more.
Hey, Peter?
If you have too much tension, don't you have a problem with rotation? Though?
Yeah. If you get too much jib, that's a good question, John, or good comment. You can get so much.
What did he say?
The question was, can you get too much halyard tension? And the answer is yes. And you'll note that because you go to sheet in and your mast counter rotates, like it is right now. Let's say I'm on port tack, and I sheet in. Oh, that's too much. A lot of times the wind will blow it. So on the beach here, it's counter rotated. But if you're out there, and I was in Australia one time at the start of a Worlds, and I sheeted on the mast, counter rotated, and everybody took off. But if there's enough wind, then usually, see, because your main blocks are your mast rotation. And what I mean by that is that this bail is purposely set so there's an angle, so that as I sheet in, it's shoving the boom forward and rotating the mast. That's how Hobie designed this. Something else you may have noticed is I've got a different main traveler line. It's a size or two smaller. I find it helps to run through the blocks a lot easier. And you cannot splice. Class rules say you cannot splice the line, but you can tie knots in it. So that was a really cheap and inexpensive one. I have a carbon fiber tiller. At some point, you get to a point, it's like air conditioning. Once you've had it, you never go back, right? And so I have a carbon fiber tiller. It's really light. It transfers energy from the rudders. When you get a feel for your rudders, I think it really helps. And just in maneuvers, having it so light really helps. Okay, we're coming back here. Outhaul on a 16 ain't that important. Put it on, and you're pretty much good. And then I have rudder covers. If you don't, you probably should. So, and I can't put the rudders down, but if you have slop, the rudder system is your brake. All right, and so if you have any slop at all, so this is how much slop I have. All right, wait a minute. I mean, there's a little bit right there, but otherwise there's no slop in here at all. And maybe when I put these down, there might be a little wiggle. It ain't much, okay? You want to spend a lot of off time getting that rudder system as tight as you can. You can shim it. And if you have any comments at all, feel free to jump in. This is Ken Marshak over here. Ken owns more Hobie 18 national championships than you or I can even count. All right, I can't even get up that high. But anyhow, so you want to make sure this whole system is tight, shim it, stuff like that. There's this. I'm going to get to this bungee here in a minute. This is for the rudder rake. What happens is as the mast comes back, it's going to put more load on your rudders, and you're going to have what's called weather helm, and your arms are going to get tired by the end of the day. You're going to be pulling on that sucker because the boat keeps wanting to turn up into the wind, and that's slow. I call that plowing water, and so as your mast comes back, the rudder's got to go further forward. There's adjustments in the system. I'm not going to go into all those, but to adjust it, I can tell you this: with the rudder down and the cam down, rudder cam down, and locked in, I lean against the rudder, push the rudder forward as far as I can with my knee. I shove a flathead screwdriver in that slot and push this as far forward as I can. Take a box end, unscrew this, loosen this first, and then I tighten with a box end wrench and get that all, I mean, you want that screwdriver in there because you want that system tight. You don't want to just be running against it and, you know, that screwdriver is an important element of tightening that up.
Hey, Peter. I had this exact thing yesterday. The port side rudder just went back.
Yes.
And on starboard in that heavy wind, I could barely
Yes.
from just going head to wind.
I sailed all last
You
week
could tell
like
it's
that.
slower.
Yeah. The regatta last weekend, this port rudder got loose. I don't know how. And it was like that. Just hell. Okay, so that's,
Peter?
any other rigging questions?
Hey, Peter, but you
Yeah.
got to be careful, right, when you slide that all forward, that it still catches on your.
I guess. Yeah, I haven't had that
I had
issue.
mine. It didn't have me adjust mine.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
I got it too forward, and it wouldn't trip the rudder, so I take it back just like that.
the other thing is, what was I going to say? I got distracted because bungees. I got 3 bungee things that really help me. You just saw me, I think, put these bungees over from under here to locked in here, and this helps me on the jibes. Man, when I want to drop a rudder down, it goes down. And it really quickens my jibe. I'm not there trying to get the whole thing down there and babysitting it and all that. It goes, doop! I'm ready for the jibe. So that's one bungee item. The other 2 are on the main. I have let me see if I can. One is I got a bungee back here. So it goes through the main blocks, through the traveler, and then I tie it on the back side. It's a stand-up. I don't know if I've had it a bunch of times where I've been traveling. Usually it happens down here, and the main blocks will just sit there and it'll catch right here. Now I got to go down there and uncleat it and all that other crap, or clear it. So that's it. Another thing is the lacing. I'm jumping around. The lacing on this kind of helps that from happen. That you don't just go from here to here to here. What we do is we go from here to here, and we get it so that it's more even. And we double it up sometimes. There's a lot of things, but you don't want to just keep going like this. I don't think. I think you get better tension going back when you're not at such an angle. Does that make sense? And then the third bungee item is this little bungee right here. That little guy. And it just keeps my my traveler from swinging around like that. Not that that's ever happened to me a bunch of times. Okay.
Any specific recommendations on tramp wire or tramp?
Lacing.
Yeah.
Something that's not stretching, and something that's relatively small that doesn't absorb a lot of water. I saw there was a Spectra kit, I think, but that's really slippery. So I like something with some what I call hand to it, where you can get a hold of it, and you know it isn't just going to slide through your hand. This stuff came with the boat, and I like it. That's actually kind of loose, but anyhow, but it's tight in here. But yeah, something small, strong enough. Obviously, you don't use dental floss, but smaller is better and won't hold water. I did want to say you have to be careful about rudder cams. Rudder cams do wear out, and so you'll need to replace those periodically. How do you know? Let me put this back on before I put that down. To take this off. So here's the rudder cam, and you know it when this part or this, I think it's this part, gets real soft. When it gets soft and squishy, your rudder cam is getting ready to bust, and you might as well, or lock on you. If you repeatedly find your rudder cam locking down, it's either a poor adjustment in here, or it's an old rudder cam. Gotta put that back before I forget. All right. I think that's all the rigging for stuff for now. I don't like to leave my downhaul on because it stretches the sail out. Gotta take care of your sails. I want to talk about yesterday. Okay, we ran 6 races. First race was in light air, 4 to 7 knots, and then it gradually built until the 6th race. We were in about, I don't know, 12 knots, maybe something like that. So it just gradually built most of the day. After the first race, I went 5 to 1. It was 4 to 7 knots, and I got 6 to 1 right here. And so in the first race, I undid this and put it up here. If you follow what I mean, I took this off. So I just untied this like that, go like that, figure 8 knot, so you can get it up. And now I'm at 5 to 1. Why would I do that? For the same reason I have a smaller traveler line, less friction. And so it allows the sheet to respond. I can respond to my sheet quicker. I'm not there going pushing it out or whatever. And then in the start, it wasn't that big of a deal. I'm in the starting sequence for the second race with 1.5 minutes to go. I go, oh shit! I gotta put my 6. The wind had building up. I didn't want to have to deal with it, so I had to quick do that, you know. And now I'm back to 6 to 1. So that was an adjustment we did in the middle of the race. In the second race, we found, first race 2, we were against what I call a lee shore. There's a lot of fetch coming down the lake, and it was really lumpy. I don't know if you guys experienced that. And in the first race, we were doing what I call a lot of vertical sailing, more than we should have anyhow. And we just kind of felt those waves keep hitting us. So I told Holly, I said, slacken the downhaul. And what happens is when you slacken the downhaul, it shifts the pocket of the sail aft. And that's more power. Remember I talked about that semi and all of that. And so, you know, mast rake is a major power shifter, and this is a minor power shifter. This is a way that I can have mast rake, but if I need a little more power, I can shift it back. And so what we did is, I don't know how much she put on because I leave that to her, but then when I sheeted on, hold on, give me your chance. We had more than. Now, all right, this is a little bit over dramatization. We didn't, but you can see the wrinkles. We call those luff wrinkles or clue wrinkles. And once you're sailing, it doesn't look like that, but this is what you're looking for. And we didn't have nearly, I mean, this is an over dramatization. So maybe, but anyhow, there's no wind in the sail. But anyhow, you start seeing wrinkles develop. And if you need, and that tells me, yeah, I've got the weight of the pocket back. And it was amazing. We just started going through the waves instead of over them. All right, it was just an incredible experience. And we were smooth as sweet. And then in the 4th and the 6th races, we had to tighten our jib halyard because we have this slippery Spectre jib halyard and it slips. You're putting pressure on it. You're reefing on everything. And so I had to keep checking my halyard tension. And I'd be over there between races. Oh crap! And so that was the beauty of it because I would be here and Holly would be between the cam cleat and the horn cleat. And I'd reef on this and try to pull it down, and she would take up, about that much extra. And then we'd, redo the horn cleat, put it on the horn cleat, and that would last for 1 or 2 races, and we'd have to do that all over again. So the point I'm making is it's not a static situation, and evaluate the conditions and how the boat is performing, and hopefully this little chat can help you. Holly, was there anything you wanted to add? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you think have it, anything that you think I might have left out that's significant.
No, I mean, yeah, unless anyone has questions about specifically the crew work. I think you kind of covered everything. Yeah.
How do you stop the battens from getting stuck on the jib halyard when you're tacking?
Yeah.
That was a real annoyance.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it a timing thing when you're releasing?
there's
it,
a
or
lot with the timing for sure. So I wait until the telecat has passed the other side before I release. So there's like a teeny tiny bit of backwind, which again, this is the only Hobie I've ever sailed. I do a ton of other sailing though. So that's when I release, and I don't have a problem tacking. The only time that's an issue for me is jibing downwind occasionally, and then I like manually do it with my hand, right? Okay. But I think with the timing, you want enough power in the sail that it pushes it.
Right. So backwind a little bit more.
Yeah, a tiny bit.
And if you don't have an eye in your halyard up top, we installed an eye about 2 feet down from the hounds, so that the halyard goes from the whatever that is, 3 to the fiddle block up at the top there. And if you don't have an eye, then you're going to be more prone to it. And backwinding would be a good solution for that, a little bit more, so there's more pressure going across it. Taping the jib battens, the ends of the jib battens with electrical tape, makes it smoother so things aren't getting caught and up and slide through. Those are the two things I've come up with too. Any other questions that we've?
Can you talk briefly about main halyard or main batten tension? How you
Yes.
considerations there?
So I wanted this set up in advance because I didn't want to take time rigging the boat. We did it while I was setting it up. We did a separate video on how to tension the jib battens. I want to put in a shameless plug. I don't promote it as much as I should. I have a YouTube channel called Hobie University, and you can go there. And I try to, there's 100 level, 200 level, 300 level, and 400 level classes in there, kind of model after. And depending on where you're at in your sailing, then you can look through those. Like I said, though, with this video, I recommend going back to it multiple times. There's a boatload of information here. I can talk too about telltales. You'll see off the leech of the main, there's 2 telltales in panels 2 and 3. I find those really helpful upwind. In light air, I'm pretty much wanting them streaming pretty much straight back along with the pocket telltales. In medium air, I kind of want them dancing back and forth. And then in heavy air, they usually just hook. And you don't worry about it. What's that?
Talk about the battens. Explain what you did.
About what?
The battens. He wanted to know about battens.
Yeah, well, I'll just refer to the other video about that, about tensioning. I can tell you, I do have a video about shaving battens. I tend to be somebody who likes to shave my battens. I don't that is like a 300 or 400 level.
That's forest V level.
I'd stay away from it until you know what you're doing on that. You can really screw things up. And I have. So, trapeze height. Typically, so I like this to be about right where the crew is. Maybe even, if we could, maybe even at the middle. And then I'm a half. So the bottom of mine reaches right where hers is, and that lower is better, but it doesn't do any good if you're so low that you flip over or can't get out on the wire. So typically what you do is you start out high And then, the next regatta, you start sneaking them down, and nobody really notices the difference. And then you sneak them down a little bit more. And you go, oh, well, now, wait a minute, I think I noticed that. You get used to that for a little while, a couple more regattas, and then you just kind of keep sneaking them down. And in terms of technique, how are we doing on time?
43 minutes.
Okay. I'll spend a few minutes on technique. Typically, when I'm trapped out, I have my foot is right here, and I'm slightly wider than shoulder width. I have put my crew. I like a little distance. I don't have it right up against, and then hers is right about here, certainly behind the shroud. She comes out in front of the shroud and goes in front of the shroud, but then she comes back behind the shroud, and then I am leaning. She's flat out, and I'm leaning over her, and I am looking at the waves. I'm not looking at the telltales. At least, well, I am. But if I'm on, not always, then it's about 70% looking at the water, looking for the flat spots upwind, and then 30% make sure that I'm sailing to the telltales. I have my main. I typically when I'm trapped out, I'm down here. I sail with my main uncleated, so that I can constantly adjust it to puffs and lulls. But I understand. I've been doing that for years. It takes a while, but once you get used to it, it's no big deal.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you try right there where you said you're going to adjust? Say you've got a little bit of a header. Are you trying to adjust right away a little bit with the main, or are you first steering?
Oh, that's a real good question. So upwind and downwind, whenever you pull on the rudders, that's your brake again, and you've got to ease off the beige sheet. I call it releasing the rudders, because what happens is when you unsheet the upwind, when you unsheet the rudders, it just takes all the pressure off of them. Now you can, so it's almost simultaneously or a fraction behind where you start to sheet off. It's pretty much simultaneous. You sheet off as you're pulling down on a header.
Otherwise, the main's trying to keep you from
Yeah,
turning.
and another item that I've incorporated, and I got this from, I can't remember the guy's name. He was coaching an Olympic, Jason Hess out in Guatemala. And he goes, Peter, how come you don't adjust your... So I'm sailing downwind, and I grab hold of my traveler. It's a lot of fun to do. And I do it like this. I hook it. It's uncleated. And puff is on, and I will sheet on, travel up a little bit, build speed, and then I will steer down, I'll dive down, and I'll release this. And you will feel the boat. It'll just take off. And yeah, I steer deep too, because if you can steer high upwind and low downwind, you can do a lot of great things. But you do that, and you just gain boat lengths over the course of a thing, and just doing that. But it takes practice, of course. But and it takes some waves too, because then you start, when there's waves, you start looking for the downhill. Again, you're looking at the water, and as soon as you see that bow, you go, "Oh yeah, that's the one." And so you build your speed, and right there, and you go down into the wave, jump over that wave into the next one. By that time, you just about run out. And so all of this takes practice, but for me, it's a ton of fun, and it gains so much. So yeah, this is a big one for me, downwind. But don't tell anybody I told you. It's a secret. At least until we put it up on a bloody video. Yeah, good questions. Good stuff, you guys. Let me see. I don't think there's anything else. No. So, superfluous stuff. One final comment. Get rid of all the crap, man. I chartered a boat one time with my other crew, Laura, and it came in at 327. We switched out shackles and lines, and we came in at 320. We dropped 7 pounds just in crap. So I do take out a water bottle and some food bars. Crew gets it. What's that?
You didn't pack a picnic?
I didn't what?
Pack a picnic.
Yeah, no. But yeah, it's about just reducing the crew weight to what you need. All right, you guys.
Thank you, Peter.
That's about it. Thanks for showing up. That was good stuff. All right, last minute questions.
Now, Peter, you said something about raising a rudder going downwind. I wasn't familiar with that technique.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, downwind and actually even upwind a little bit. We raise a rudder. What it does is it reduces wetted surface area, but even more importantly, it puts all of the pressure sailing downwind onto one rudder. And you want to get good at feeling the flow of water and the pressure over the rudder, because that's where the softness is. And so you can steer a finer line when you only have one rudder in two. With two, it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But with one, it really accentuates and helps you steer. But it's also less wetted surface area. What's interesting is the Puerto Ricans started sailing them upwind with one rudder. But it only works in double trap conditions. It doesn't do much, but it looks bitchy.
Yeah, I bet.
It just looks ripping bad.
Oh,
So
I'll give that a try.
you can put fear into your competition. You get out there with that.
Style points.
Style points, exactly.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.